Okay, this video is going to actually talk you through a similar example to what you guys are going to be doing with your jokes. So let me talk about that for just a second. In your jokes file, you have the knock-knock jokes, and it has your first piece of data, and then it has the response. So you say knock-knock, who's there? They say no bell, and then the answer is no bell, that's why I knocked. And then etc. And so you have this pairing of data. Like these two lines kind of go together, but you don't want to like use them both at the same time or all the time. And you need to keep track of the odd number 1 has the joke response 2. The odd number 3 has the joke response from line 4. The odd number line 5 has a joke response on line 6. So you have this a little bit of pairing of data. And so I'm going to mimic the same type of a thing with the attendees file and see if we can give you an example, not exactly the same thing, but something similar to work with. So when we left off on the last one, we were able to read the data and we knew that we had 14 items of data. What we need to know now as we're working through this data, and maybe just to make some comments in here, we need to know that we have odd lines in our program is going to be the name of the person attending, and then our even lines are member or no or not. Okay, whether they're a member or not. So I need to know the structure of my data file before I even work, and that's pretty common that you have to know the structure of the file that you're working with. So we were able to count the lines, and so there's several things that I can do. If I just wanted to print the total number of attendees, for example, right now I'm printing all of the data. If I wanted to come up with the total number of attendees, then as I read in my lines, I'm going to need to, I don't print every one. I only print if the total lines that I'm on and is going only if it's an odd line. So if I do modulus 1, or excuse me, if I divide it, if I check to see if it's even with a modulus 2, if I get back a 1, that means it's an odd number. Remember the way that modulus works. And remember the symbol for modulus in Python is the % sign. And so if I divide by 2 and my remainder is 1, I'm on an odd line, and then I'm going to print that line. And so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of, well, I'm just going to comment out these other 2 lines. Actually, it doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and run this and see if it works. And it won't, because I don't have my right indentation here. If I only want this line of code to run, and it does not like this because it's saying I have a syntax error. I don't know then, do I need an extra set of parentheses? It's actually the fact that total lines is, I don't know if it's taking, it should be taking it as an integer right now because I haven't worked with it as text. So, gotta debug this. Total number modulus 2 double equals 1, and it says invalid syntax. Okay, I took a moment to debug that, and it's my Java messing up my Python. I forgot the colon at the end of the line here, and I think I might have had a typo in total lines. But if I check to see if the modulus is 1, then that's going to print just the odd number lines. And so I have, and now it's still printing the line number right here, which we will get rid of eventually. But therefore, it's just printing then that line. And actually, if I got rid of the line number and I just went ahead and ran it, then it's going to print all my attendees. So there's all my attendees. And the number of people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is 7. So everything's above board. Now, what's going to happen when you guys run your joke program is you're going to need to print some combination of that value, and then you're going to need to print the response. So we're going to do, if I want to print whether or not the attendee, or if I want to count whether they are a member, I'm going to have another statement. So here I'm actually want to pull on the other lines. So and actually what I could do, there's a couple of ways I could do this. let's go ahead and just check to see if it's an even numbered line. So if it's an even numbered line, when I divide by 2, I'm going to get a response of 0. There might be a more efficient way for me to do this, but for right now I'm doing it this way. Then I'm going to check to see if the value of that if the response there, if line is double equal to yes, that means that they were a member. Then I'm going to take member count and I'm going to add 1 to member count. And so I'm going to accumulate my members, and then I'm going to print down here number of members, something like the following. Okay, and then my number of members will be the member count. So hopefully that will execute. If I go back in and see how many members do I have? Fred, Betty, Bam Bam, and the dinosaur Dino. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 members. So if I run this code and we see if there's number of members attending, again, my syntax, I forget that I need a colon at the end of these lines. Let's see if we can fix that. And of course there's another typo or something somewhere. So let's take a look. What's our error message? Name error. Total line is not defined. So that's usually a typo. So I have total line and I want total lines with a plural. So that's going to take care of that. And member count, it's also yelling at me. So using my camel casing, starting with a lowercase and then using an uppercase. And hopefully we were not successful. So this one's not counting all of my members. It only counts 1. So if I go back to my file, let's see, I have them all in lowercase. So yes, 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 yes. So it should have counted yeses on those. So sometimes in order to figure out what's going on, I'm going to need to figure out what it's actually, maybe pulling in, because it's not saying that the line here is yes, so I don't know what it's counting. Let me try to just put in what's called an echo check, and I'm going to put member or not is what it's going to print, and then I'm going to print the line that it pulled in, and hopefully it's going to show me yes or no's, and I can see if this piece of code is actually working correctly or not. So we've got member or not yes, member or not no, member or not no, yes. So it's reading in my yeses and no's. So it's not a mistake with reading the file. My file is being read correctly. It's something in here where it says if it's a yes, if the line is a yes, I want to say member count equals member count plus 1. So obviously it's not counting my members correctly. Another thing I can do is, if it's, I don't know if it's like not then getting into the second if statement, so what I can do is something like this, and I'm going to say inside the yes for members count, okay? So that's actually going to let me know, did it actually get past this if and then past the next if? And so I'm debugging. I'm debugging by putting in some blank print statements, and there is my error. It only gets inside that second yes 1 time. And so this right here is not executing correctly. So I know that it's happening on my even lines. And then on my even lines, I want to check to see if it's yes. But the only time that it seems to be doing that is on once, on the one time. Now, is it the first time? Is it the last time? Is it, I don't know what it's checking. So maybe if I also print, no, that won't work. I was going to try to print the name, but that's not going to work because that prints opposite this line. So we have to think. Okay, I ran it again. It's still counting the number of members incorrectly. And I went in and did several other kind of things for debugging. And I finally decided that, you know what, I bet there's something wrong with my data file. and that even though we don't see it, these all look like yeses, but it's not reading them as yeses. I know it was executing member or not, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. It's pulling that stuff in. What is probably happening is that when I typed this file on like members, for example, maybe I typed, and this is pretty typical, yes, space bar, and I hit return. So instead of it reading as just a yes, it's reading as a yes and a space, etc. Okay, so there's a way that we can fix that, and what we do is when we're reading through the line, when I read in the line right here, I can do line dot strip, and if I strip that line of any white space before or after it, then I'm going to cross my fingers. That was the error. Now I have my number of attendees at 4, and so we are good to go. I can take out my extra print statements that I used for debugging. I don't need them anymore. And then I have this line of code that's going to print my number of attendees. So we have all of my members, number attending, members are 4, etc. One more thing that we can notice, or what we could do, is whenever you have an if and then both of these conditions have to be true, we can take that one line of code and we could actually ask that in a single question, because that's an and statement. So rather than having these two if statements, I could decide to just ask the same question in a single if statement. And that single if statement would be if it's an even numbered line, and then I'm going to strip it and it's yes, then we're going to print the number of attendees. So this shows you just a little bit of how to work with data that has data on odd numbered lines and then on even numbered lines, and when you need to pull in the different data, and that you're going to have to ask different if statements based on whether it's an even or an odd as you're executing through your code. That'll be similar to what you have to do with the jokes file, because you have your even, odd, even, odd, even, odd.